Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It is just 5 minutes after 3, and we are going to get started. So the format for the pre-bid conference this afternoon on May 8th, 2024, this is the 3 p.m. pre-bid conference. The format is question and answers. So we actually only had one question that was submitted. And so what we'll do is I will go through that particular question, and then I will open up the rest of the meeting for additional questions. And we will remain on the call until you all run out of questions or until we hit right up until almost 4 o'clock. So with that, I will go ahead and get started. The question that we received was, if submitting the 2021 RFA with updates, which tables do we use? Revised or the original submitted with the 2021 RFA? The answer is that the 2021 RFA, including all attachments, the original tables, may be submitted as an option for this RFA. If you'll remember, all of those tables were embedded in the original RFA. And so it's probably easier to go ahead and submit those tables. But if you find that it's easier and more, if these new tables that were attached to the updated RFA for this this particular cycle is easier for your needs assessment process, you may use those for your agency and use those attachments if that's what you would prefer. So that is the answer to that. That is really all of the questions we had. So I am now going to open it up to any additional questions. You can either put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask questions if you would like. All of these will be posted to the website. I will coordinate those and make sure those are posted tomorrow. And we are available for questions.
Laura, this is Christine McAllister again.
Yes,
I
Chris.
have a follow-up from this morning's question.
Okay.
I asked you about, the budget this morning,
Yes.
and you said to work within our last year's budget.
Mm-hmm.
But can we move money around to how our programs are developing? Like if I need to move money from prevention to first offenders?
So Kevin Clegg is on the call. Kevin, would you like to respond to that question?
Sure. So we want to make sure that, that we accommodate your request. We do want to start out with the budget as it was established last year, and then go ahead and do your justification and rationale for moving it, and submit that to us when you submit your application, and we'll take that under consideration. There are certain categories where we want to be careful about moving money from or to, but we can work that out with you. Send us your request and we'll see what we can do.
So do you want me to send that request prior to submitting it with the RFA, or do you want it, because you're saying to work with what I've got in my RFA or my budget last year?
Yeah, submit it with your RFA. So basically it's the, you would do consider your last year numbers as your starting point, but go ahead and submit a change order request with your application.
Okay.
So I have a follow-up to Christie's. So does that mean like we won't be able to move shelter money anywhere, or does that need to be made before the application?
For now, we will be leaving the shelter money. We will not be making any changes to the shelter line. You can go ahead and submit your concern about that, or what you would like to do with that funding, and we'll take it into consideration. But we received additional funding specifically for the shelter, established rates for the shelter, and then did the allocation based on those rates. So we want to leave those allocations set at least for the first part of the year. If there's funding that you have available are you talking about moving out from shelter or moving into shelter? I'm sorry.
Moving out of to prevention.
Okay. So one thing you might consider is requesting a change in the number of beds you have. And then that would affect your allocation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Kevin, so we have another budget question in the chat. It says, does there need to be a budget submitted and can we request additional funds?
So if you can request additional funds, and we would entertain that if funding is available or becomes available. As far as the question, because we always want that information. If you could utilize additional funding for specific programs or specific purposes, we need to know about that so we can shape future budget requests and things like that. As far as do you have to submit a budget? Remind me, Laura, do we have a budget form in the?
No, we did not include that as part of this RFA. And what we originally said is that we were going to stick with last year's budget and then they could request a revision with justification within this RFA.
Right. So it's not, so you really don't have to submit a budget if there are no, if you're not going to recommend changes to your original allocation. It's basically just stating where the funding is going to go. And that's one of the good things about a rate-based contract. You really, all we're doing is stating what your allocation is by category. And so that's already said. As we said, that'll be the same as the beginning of or the same as last year. And hopefully we'll receive additional funding through the appropriations process. And then we'll be working with agencies to allocate those funds out. And if you want to go ahead and give us information on how you would allocate those funds, then by all means include that with your application.
I do think it's important though for you all to think about and for us to recognize that in a true needs assessment process, right, your needs may shift and they may change, and we recognize that. So this RFA process is a good time for you to communicate how those needs have changed and shifted so that when you're requesting that budget revision, it's already providing and substantiating that justification of moving funding from one budget category to another. Just keeping in mind that if it's from one core category to another, that you're going to have data to support that. But this is a good time to do that. You're basically laying the groundwork for that. Do we have any other questions that we can help answer today?
Hey, Laura. I do have some questions, and I thank you for taking my call earlier.
Sure.
As I told you earlier, I have been working through to see how quick it would be to cut and paste from the old format into the new format. And it was very good. I got to table 5, the combination table 5, and I do have a couple of more questions. When it lists for the program, I know that we broke out FTOP. I noticed that we did that. Are you wanting a separate table for like CBYS, CARS, FTOP, LST, and then another category? Is one question on that I have.
So yeah, so each table is for that specific program, right? And so it could be, let's suppose you're a program that has maybe Girl Strong. And so Girl Strong is going to have its own programmatic information. So every program will have its own table. Does that make sense? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, kind of, but now I'm understanding that differently. So we would put Girl Strong, but we wouldn't just, I thought we were going to list maybe possibly, well, I assume maybe we were listing like the budget category. But you're saying we want to list each program that we do out.
Why don't we pull it up and take a look at it, Peter?
Sure.
I think sometimes that helps if we're all looking at it.
It helps me. I appreciate that, Laura.
Sure. Let's see. And you're looking at combination RFA, correct?
Yes, I'm looking at a combination, table 5.
Okay, yeah, so let me share my screen. And okay, hopefully you all can see that. So the question is specific to the program. So yeah, so it would be specific.
We don't
Let's,
see it.
you do not see, gotta hit share, that helps.
Okay,
Can you
It's
see it
there.
now?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. So, so if you'll notice up at the top, it's where it says program.
Mhm.
That is specific to why are you picking the program that you're picking to implement?
Mhm.
So if it is like Botvan Life Skills, if it is, maybe it's your digital citizenship, whatever it may be, you're going to put that program up there. The risk factors then that justify it, the counties that'll be implemented in, and then your goals and objectives.
Okay, so if I'm an agency and I provide 20 different specific programs, then I'm going to put all 20 on here.
If they're funded under the contract, yes.
Yes, and then with that, with the counties then, so I would do it by program, and then if I have 3 counties, but I don't implement this into all, then I do this by program, and then I have to list each individual county out as well. Like I have to do one page for each county, or however many pages.
Now, if you would just do it, so if you look up at the top where it says counties/counties, you would just put where in the catchment area, what part of your catchment area is implementing that particular program.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then I have another question with the risk factors. I looked over at the link that's provided in the Word document. And
Okay.
so are we bound to using only those risk factors that are listed there, or?
If there are risk factors that are evidence-based and you can tie it to that research that is not listed there, I don't have an issue with you using another risk factor.
Okay, all right, that's fair. And then my final question on this form is with the FY25 outcomes. Right now, those would be blank, and then we would list what our outcomes are at the end of FY25, correct?
Correct, and that becomes your baseline.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, Laura. That was helpful.
You're welcome.
Laura, I know you talked about this in the very beginning, but just so I'm clear, I get my fiscal year 21 and I have it on my screen and I update that one, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Yolanda. And there should be tables within it that you've already done that you're just going to update. And if you
Yes.
added new programs, then you can add new information to it. If you're no longer needing some of the programs, then you might take those out.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like out of Woodward, there's a question. I have a question about our COPE program. It wasn't on the last RFA. Do we need to add to the RFA or submit something separate? So that is a good question for special programs. I'm not quite sure how to answer that, Becky. So let Kevin, our additional programming that using under the implementation rate, does that need to be included in the RFA as well? I would assume it does.
Yes, that would be treated like any of the other programs.
Okay.
So that wasn't around when the last RFA was done. If you want to utilize your old RFA instead of filling out the new one, then you would just update it for that program.
Do they need to include the hiring and retention therapist information? I certainly would address it in the needs assessment process. But you don't necessarily need to add that to the budget. Is that correct, Kevin?
Well, let's think about that for a minute. So since we have yet to, we're still working on permanent funding for that program. So we're using lapsed funds from the prior year. So we can wait until we know what funding is available, and then folks can send in their requests at that time, and then we would do an amendment to their contract.
Right.
So how's that sound? And hopefully we'll receive new money and we can permanently fund that. But for now, we'll continue. We're just continuing to use what funding we can find.
There's also a question, can we submit any questions or needed clarification that may come up in the process of completing the RFA to the CBYS email? Yes, you can. Please send them to the CBYS email address. We will post answers to the website. Thank you, Audrey, for answering that. I appreciate it. Do we have any other questions that we want to talk about today? Anything within the RFA you want to take a look at? The options is something new this year. We wanted to give you all an opportunity to either use the new condensed version of the RFA. Keep in mind, if you need to, if you're not certain what different parts of the RFA, what they are, you can always go back to that assessment manual. It's in the Word document of the new format. There's a link within it. You can access that. Regarding table 5, again, we use the curriculum positive actions for a few different groups that we do, bullying, social skills, etc., because it was a wide variety of options. Do we do a separate table for each group, or can we do one table for positive actions? So, Hunter, I'm trying to think that through. You're using one curriculum, but for different types of groups. I think since it's the same curriculum, I think you're good with one. Just make sure that you are clearly providing all that information on that one table. So
we
the
would be
next,
like cars or something like and then that would be that, as opposed to listing the separate curriculums, because that goes a little bit further than programs.
I'm sorry, say that again, Peter.
Wouldn't we be able to list like cars that we're providing cars to, our different, communities or our different counties? Because if we start listing curriculum, then that's a broader stroke than even a program like Girl Power. Because to me, Girl Power could reach up under CBYS, or it could reach under cars. You know what I'm saying?
I do, but I think of that as more of a funding source, whereas Girl Power is a program.
Okay. And then positive actions is really more of a curriculum. So you don't want us to list curriculums necessarily as where it's saying programs.
So, I mean, I think that's where it gets challenging, right? Like it, yeah, I need to kind of, I may need, Hunter, are you able to talk?
Yeah,
Can you elaborate a little bit on your question?
so through positive actions, you can get a curriculum, and then they also provide you basically this small booklet or list that says, for example, if you want to do social skills, you can do a group that's you can do this unit, this unit, this unit, and this unit from their big stuff that you purchase, their big curriculum that you purchase. So we utilize that, and like we do social skills at one of the elementary schools. We do anti-bullying program at one of the middle schools. And so I'm just wondering, and we're planning on expanding that more. Do we need to do a separate table 5 for each like group topic that we're covering for like 6-week groups, or can we just say these are positive actions groups and just do one table for everything that's falling under that?
So think about it from the perspective of data and how you would track the data and the cleanest way to track the data. So if you're looking at data for, the 6-week program, are you going to want to mix that with one of the other groups when you're looking at your outcomes data? I mean, I think that's how you make the most sense of it. If you're comfortable with putting positive action at the top and then separating your outcomes down at the bottom that says maybe the first outcome is, you're going to increase, and I'm just making this up, school attendance by 50%, or, I don't know, decrease substance use, whatever, then you would itemize those out, and you might be specific in what you're listing to show population differences. Then I could see how you can make that work. But you would just have to be able to specify it underneath the positive actions, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
Laura, could we put, in some cases, could we put prevention as the program, and then with the objectives, it be like present positive actions to 25% of 3rd grade schools within my catchment area, or within, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's not really an outcome. That's an output. So you wouldn't be measuring anything that's going to change. We want to know what's going to change. So you're providing that to 25%, but what good is it? No, and I know it's good, but I'm saying that's what we need to see is what is it actually, how's it going to impact them, and how's it addressing that risk factor? Does that make sense?
It does, but I think, yeah, I get what you're saying, but then we could just change the objective to measure, like, kids change in kids' behavior or something, as opposed to measuring the implementation of that. But the same question, could we just put prevention at the top, and upon completing XYZ program or curriculum, we will witness these changes in our children and youth?
As long as it's specific and measurable enough, and it's not so broad that it's not unreachable. Because you got to remember, you're going to have baseline data, and then you got to be able to measure against it. And we've got to be able to tell there's an impact. So, I mean, just keep that in mind. You don't want it so broad that it's not something, you want it specific enough and doable enough that it's actually going to show that you're having an impact.
All right, thank you.
So we have another question in the chat. Would it be possible to schedule a meeting in the near future after we have a chance to work through the RFA? So it sounds like you're requesting another pre-bid conference or a technical assistance meeting something to that effect. Is that an accurate? Is that accurate? Okay, so if we provide it to one, we definitely have to provide it to everyone. So, I would be open to offering an office hour to be able to do that and just making it open for everyone. But I would need to defer to Kevin on contracts to even know, is that something we can do after the RFA has been released?
Sure, we can, it would just be a continuation of this meeting. So if we want to schedule some office hours and invite everybody that's attending these meetings, then sure. If there are questions out there and if assistance is needed, then we definitely want to be available to take care of those needs.
Okay, so there we go. We will, we can do that, and we can put that on, notify everyone. We'll put it on the website if that would be something that's helpful. If that sounds like something that would be helpful, please just send us a request to the CBYS email and I will pursue that. Okay, perfect. We'll do that.
Laura, this might be a good opportunity to plug our office hours that we have. What is it, every other week?
Yeah, let me pull up the calendar too, and I can give that as well.
Not only for the RFA, but for any questions that come up at any time.
Let's see. So we had one this week on May the 6th, but our next one will be, give me 1 minute and I will pull it up. Let's see. And of course, I don't know what I'm looking at, so hold on. So it's about, we have it scheduled right now, Kevin, for every 21 days. So we'll schedule another one before the next office hours. So we're doing it about every third week. And of course, we can always make that more frequent if that's helpful to you all also. So if this RFA is due on the 29th, I want to make sure that we give you all enough time to answer questions after you've had a chance to look at the RFA. So in looking at my calendar, perhaps that week before the week of the 20th through the 24th, we can set up a time to do it that week. Does that give everyone enough time to look at the RFA and then for us to be available? Okay, we will set that up then.
Laura, when we look at the outcomes on the Form 5,
Sure.
you said you want to see like behavior change or knowledge change. So are you suggesting that we would pre and post test kids for each thing that we provide, or would you give me an example of what that would look like?
Yeah, let me actually, I'm going to pull up, I think that, let me go to the website. I think that's the easiest way to do this.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult at all, Laura.
No, you're fine. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see where I'm going to, when I have questions. I'm also going to go and look for answers. And so I want you to see where I'm going when I do that. You should be able to see how I'm on the OJA website up at the top. And I've clicked on Youth Service Agency information, where all the information is for our RFA. And so if you go down to where it says RFA application part 3, I'm going to click on that. And here's our Word document. And within the Word document, there should be a blue hyperlink right here that says Assessment Guidance Manual. I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to go through and take a look and just verify how they originally, what the original recommendations were. And then we'll process that together. I'm sorry, Peter, I'm slow.
You're not slow. I've been the one asking questions for 4 hours today.
You're fine. Okay, service selection tool. Okay, I think this is where we started talking about. I really thought, I know it's in here. Let's see. Measuring progress and impact. Let's see if it's there. Yeah, so I'm still gonna lean towards wanting to see something change. Whether it's pre and post, or it's something as simple as watching grades change. I think it really just depends on the model that you're using, because every model has a different thing that it's targeting. I mean, it's really going to depend on what the intervention is. I don't know that answers your question, Peter, but
Based on what you just scrolled past it, it said that it could be informal communication between participants and their leader, but also it could be something as simple as, like, if you're looking at behavioral health, completing their service plan. Or
are you looking at the quantitative and qualitative?
yeah, I was looking at that when you were scrolling
Yeah.
past it.
Yeah.
in the past, what we did and we got scored, really well was at 60-day follow-up, a minimum of 95% of at-risk youth that receive counseling services will remain in a safe and stable family. I'm not quite sure how that would be measured per se, but I mean, it could be done. You could look at that at discharge and look at if they're receiving like family services or something.
Right. Right. But I also think too, I mean, and I don't think we minimize the qualitative process either, right? Like, I think this is good information. I think attendance rates is good too, but I like the way this breaks it out in here. So some of this is pretty helpful for people if they want to take a look at what are some indicators that they can use.
I think that's helpful, but also when we're looking at, the processes, if you're implementing LST and if we look at rating our fidelity, LST straight up Botman tells you that if it's implemented with fidelity, then you are going to see these outcomes in children and youth. So wouldn't that be measurable to see that there are outcomes if we have kids that are participating and they follow through with fidelity with the program, then we should be able to see a reduction in tobacco, a reduction in bullying behaviors, a reduction in drug and alcohol usage.
Yeah, and you should be able to look at your pre and post surveys for Botman, and it should be able to show, percentages of change within those different areas of the actual survey. So
Yep.
you should, in their self-report data.
Yep, I just know that not every agency pre and post test on that.
Laura, this is Sheila. I have a question. Could we also, our primary school district, Edmond, does their own series of annual assessments with students over a wide variety of different social emotional measurements. And they do share those with the agency. So if we provide our 5th grade program, then when they enter into 6th grade, they will assess them. And so we can do year to year. District wide, not necessarily kid to kid, but since we provide it across the district to all elementary school sites, there would be some new kids coming in because there are kids that come in and out of the district. Could we still use that as a measurement as well? Some of those district wide measurements.
Yeah, I think if you're providing that intervention district wide and then they're giving you the number district wide for that same population, I think you could use it.
Okay. And there'd be a little bit of variation as kids come and, some kids in 5th grade will leave before 6th grade and would have a couple of new kids in, and I wouldn't be able necessarily to track them. But overall, I could probably give you that rate of a transient of students. So you'd know, 95% of the 5th graders entered in the 6th grade and took the assessment.
Yeah, I think that's okay though.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Are we still required to use CATs? My understanding, it was not still a requirement. So no, it's a tool, Dr. Sherry, it's not a requirement. A needs assessment process is a requirement, but it needs to be an evidence-informed model, and CATS is one of those. So it's available and it's there for you to use. You're welcome. So if we look at the week, I see a question that says which week again, and I'm guessing that that's on what week would we meet again. And so I was thinking the week before the RFA is due, around the week of the 20th, May the 20th, maybe through the 24th. And I know that's kind of a hard hard week for some folks. We've got graduations and things like that going on. So I would try to do it earlier in the week, if that works for everyone. So probably like Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, the 21st or 22nd is what I am thinking. So please let me know if that sounds like it'll work. And of course, we'll record it as well. And if possible, and my schedule allow, I can even offer it twice, one in the morning and one in the afternoon.
Laura, the office will be offering some technical assistance as well. If I share that link with you, not a commitment that you'll be at all of them, would you be open to popping into those as well?
Certainly. Now, Peter, when I say that, the only thing we have to be cautious of is if not every applicant is present, then I have to be, I have to make sure that all information that is given is available to all applicants.
So we could record it and I could share those recordings with you to put on the website if you'd like, on your website.
Okay, that would be fine.
Yeah. Laura, I'm going to finish filling out one of the series of table fives. And I'd like to email it to you. And if you don't mind giving some feedback, and maybe that's something you could post as well, so it serves as a guide to other people.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time, Peter?
I'm going to finish filling out the table five, you know,
Okay.
that whole series, and I want to send it over to you for you to look at. And if it's something that you feel would be, you know, once you make a recommendation, a tool that we can post on the website as well, so that people can like follow along with what that would look like. I think that might be helpful to actually physically see something.
Almost like a sample?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha.
I've almost completed it, but I just want to spend a little more time and, you know, do it across all the domains so that it would be a better document.
Yeah, yeah. Just keep in mind that the whole, and I'm saying this kind of across the board to everyone, is we want to make sure that everybody's plans are individualized to your unique agency. And that if you're using an evidence-based model, what your evidence-based model looks like in your community may be very different than what it looks like in another community. And you'll want to have your outcomes for that model unique to you. And you'll want to show exactly what's changing in your community as you implement that program. So for example, if let's say you are doing Botvin and you're implementing it at Broyles Elementary School, then you want to show how in the second graders at Broyles Elementary School are doing the second grade curriculum. And maybe you want to show that the pre and the post test is going to have a 10% change in their knowledge and understanding of substance use or whatever it is. You'll look at those domains for that particular curriculum. So just keep that in mind, that you want to make sure it's unique to your individual catchment area and the curriculum within Botvin that you use, because you know Botvin has multiple curriculums for multiple age groups. So consider your target population, consider who it's being given to, and make sure that you customize it so that we can tell who it is you're providing it to. All of your RFAs will be reviewed. So there's a review team of about 3 to 4 people per. So there's a team of 4 that will be reviewing 7 to 9 apiece. So that's a lot. And so they're going to be looking at those and scoring those. It's the same way that we did it the last time, same kind of criteria. And then of course, we will always provide you all with feedback on that scoring process. And we can meet virtually, we can meet in person, however you all would like to do that. So I hope that helps. And then we, of course, will have another meeting with you available on the 20th, that week of the 20th. Are there any additional questions? Well, as spring has been upon us, I can honestly tell you that we have been thinking of all of you all across the state, whether you're taking care of the families and the youth in your community, overnight in a shelter, or whether you're doing prevention work or out there helping with cleanup. We're thinking of you. And if there's anything that you need, please let us know. We want to make sure your needs are taken care of, not just for the youth that you're serving and the families you're serving, but also for you all. So please let us know how we can help you. You know, we care about what's going on in your communities, and we care about you all. So we appreciate you. Good to hear that that week, it looks like those 2 days are looking good for folks. I'm going to stay on the call. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute. And then we will end the call at 4 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, Laura, it's Sheila again here in Edmond. I did have a question on the CATS process.
Sure.
Edmond about 18 months ago enlisted a professional company, Healthy Minds Inc., to do a community-wide needs assessment. And the agency was a part of that needs assessment process. We also went along and we met with our stakeholders, and we did focus groups as well in that process, but we were part of a larger community needs assessment process. And so on some of those things, I am a participant, but not necessarily a driver, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Process. And I was thinking about adding those into those community needs. Are you open to that as well? I mean, we sat on committees, we were interviewed, some of our stakeholders were interviewed in that process, but ultimately the data that was collected belongs to the city of Edmond. It was published. And so, and it kind of corresponds with what we found out anyway. It's kind of supporting documentation to what we found. And so, are you open to that as part of that needs process?
Yeah, so Sheila, so sure, we're open to that because I would imagine that in those meetings, as you sat there and you listened to the needs that were going on, let me ask you this: did you talk about the things that Edmond, that your agency could help meet certain needs when those things came up? And did you all participate as a community partner in that process?
Yeah, and we continue to do so on a monthly and somewhat as a quarterly basis as the CCBHs roll out into Edmond. But like I said, it wasn't necessarily spearheaded by my agency. We do have some community needs coalitions and groups that got together and did our community needs assessment. But on this particular one, we were more of adjacent to and went along with, and yes, sat in committees, but it wasn't necessarily spearheaded by our agency. So some of the data you would receive from me would be which is awesome because they were able to access the entire 100,000 people who live in Edmond, which I would have struggled with as being a small agency. And so just making sure, and I'll note that and give them credit for that, but I do want to incorporate that because I think that's very important. One, it kind of illuminates that the needs assessments that we put together also, it's correlating data, I guess, for a
Yeah.
lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's great. We want you to work within your community and work with your community, and to me, in my mind, that's leveraging your resources. And I think that's just smart. So no, we're perfectly fine with that.
Okay, thank you, Laura. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Laura?
Yes. How are you,
Hi,
Dr. Sherry?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. What can I do
Good.
for you?
I have a question. How do we attain our previous score?
So did you receive your previous RFA?
We have that.
Okay, so I can pull your, I will get with Amanda and we will pull the previous scoring for you and
Okay.
get that sent over to you.
Okay, we appreciate it. Thank
Sure,
you.
no problem. We can do that through email.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we are nearing the top of the hour. I've got a couple of minutes, 2 to be exact. Does anyone else have any questions left before we sign off? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I hope everyone has a good afternoon. And we will talk soon before the RFA is due.
Thank you, Laura, for everything.
You're welcome.